Good morning, and thank you all for being part of the 2021 Sepsis Alliance Summit. My name is Tom Heyman. I'm the President and CEO of Sepsis Alliance. We're thrilled to welcome more than 2,000 registrants to this year's three-day conference. And on behalf of Carl Flatley and the entire Sepsis Alliance team, we thank you for joining together in the fight to beat sepsis. As you may know, there is a new sepsis case diagnosed every 20 seconds in the United States, and more than 1 in 5 of those diagnosed will die. Half of sepsis patients who are lucky enough to survive will suffer the lingering impact of sepsis, whether physical, like in the form of amputations, or cognitive or mental struggles that impact the quality of life for hundreds of thousands of sepsis survivors and their loved ones each year. There's so much we can do, and it starts with education, like the learning we'll be sharing at this year's summit, including critical work in research, policy, and innovation. Over the next 3 days, you'll be hearing presentations from some of the most passionate clinicians, educators, researchers, and innovators. Together, we will gain key takeaways to help improve sepsis diagnosis, care, and outcomes in your facilities and organizations across the continuum of care. I'm so excited to be part of this effort and be working with all of you to help save lives. I want to thank our speakers and our sponsors at the Sepsis Advocate, Public Education, and Lifesaver level who have made this summit and the continuing nursing education for the clinical sessions possible and free. I now want to introduce John Sperzel. John is the CEO and chairman of T2 Biosystems, our conference presenting sponsor. John has a compelling personal sepsis story that led him to join the fight to improve the early diagnosis of sepsis. Thank you, John, for your support. Over to you.
Tom, it's great to be with you today. On behalf of our team at T2 Biosystems, I want to recognize the great progress you and the Sepsis Alliance team are making, and thank you for allowing us to sponsor the 2021 Sepsis Alliance Summit. Today, I'm going to talk about rapid diagnostics and the impact on sepsis. First, I want to share a case that appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine, the world's oldest and most prestigious peer-reviewed medical journal. It is my sepsis survivor story. I was perfectly healthy the first 53 years of my life. I was a former college athlete, and I trained almost every day. I live a very healthy lifestyle. I don't drink, smoke, or use drugs. On April 16th, 2017, Easter Sunday, I traveled to Aruba for vacation. And within 12 hours of arriving, my girlfriend found me unconscious and unresponsive. I was defibrillated, stabilized, and med-flighted to the United States. I spent 10 days in the intensive care unit at Baptist Hospital in Miami, Florida, before traveling to Boston, where I spent nearly 2 months in the cardiac surgical intensive care unit at Massachusetts General Hospital. I was in acute heart failure. I had 4 surgeries in my first 4 days at Mass General, and finally got a diagnosis. It was grave. Giant cell myocarditis. It's a fatal disorder that's been diagnosed only about 300 times in medical history, most of those during autopsy, with a mean time from diagnosis to death of 4 to 5 months. I was immediately in the fight of my life, but I was well prepared. I had been training for this my whole life. I just didn't know it. I was placed on the heart transplant list and told I would be put on life support, or veno-arterial ECMO. As a healthcare executive, I had spent nearly 30 years advancing life-saving technologies around the world. I knew the ECMO standard of care included heavy sedation, essentially putting patients into a medically induced coma. So I asked a straightforward question: can I stay awake while I'm on ECMO? The doctors tried to talk me out of that idea, telling me it would be a horrific experience, but I insisted. After all, I was fighting for my life, and I wasn't about to take a nap. I spent the next 8 days awake on life support. When my other organs began to fail, I was taken off life support, and my chest was cut open to place devices in both my left and right ventricles to take over the main functions of my heart. This would be the last surgery before a heart transplant that hopefully would come in time to save my life. While awaiting transplant, I battled hospital-acquired pneumonia and a life-threatening blood clot. Finally, on July 8th, 2017, I received a life-saving heart transplant. My battle wasn't quite over. While I was recovering from the heart transplant, I got 3 multi-drug resistant bacterial infections, including Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which became septic. I got a crash course in hospital-acquired infections, sepsis, and broad-spectrum antibiotic protocols. I lost all the nerves in my lower legs, which has not recovered, so I had to learn how to walk again. I am the luckiest person on the planet. I say this all the time. Giant cell myocarditis, a heart transplant, and sepsis didn't happen to me. It happened for me. While I was in the hospital, I made a promise that I would do something meaningful to pay it forward in honor of my heart donor. I took 2 specific actions. First, I joined T2 Biosystems as CEO to address the sepsis crisis. And second, I wrote a best-selling book to raise awareness about the risk of sepsis and the importance of organ donation. And I'm donating 100% of the book proceeds to Sepsis Alliance and Donate Life America. Sepsis is the body's overwhelming and life-threatening response to an infection. It is a global problem with fatal consequences. You're going to hear a lot about sepsis over the next few days, but I want to highlight 3 staggering facts. First, sepsis is the leading cost of hospitalization in the United States. It costs our healthcare system approximately $62 billion a year. Second, sepsis is the leading cause of readmissions to the hospital. About 40% of patients are rehospitalized within 90 days. And third, sepsis is the leading cause of death in US hospitals, claiming the lives of nearly 270,000 Americans each and every year. That's more than the top 3 cancers combined. The challenge of detecting sepsis-causing pathogens is that it's a race against time, as each hour of delayed treatment increases mortality risk by up to 8%. The current standard of care for patients at risk of sepsis relies on broad empiric protocols to administer antimicrobial therapy, despite the fact that such protocols are only optimal in approximately 1/2 of cases. To further complicate matters, the current standard of care continues to rely on a positive blood culture to identify the presence of a bloodstream infection and target therapy for patients suspected of sepsis. Due to their poor sensitivity, blood cultures often require multiple samples from critically ill patients and take anywhere from 1 to 5 days to achieve the growth necessary for pathogen identification. Additional testing, such as traditional microbiology or post-culture molecular diagnostic tests, may then be required to determine of species ID or susceptibility. The rapid identification of sepsis-causing pathogens is critical. Our aim at T2 Biosystems is to change the standard of care by enabling targeted therapy faster. In fact, we have the first and only FDA-cleared products able to detect sepsis-causing pathogens directly from whole blood within 3 to 5 hours, without the need to wait days for a positive blood culture. Remember what I said earlier, for each hour of delayed treatment, mortality risk increases by up to 8%. Our comprehensive portfolio includes a highly sensitive, fully automated, easy-to-use instrument. It's as simple as just adding the blood specimen to the cartridge. And our current sepsis test panels include T2 Candida and T2 Bacteria, which are both FDA cleared and CE marked, as well as our T2 Resistance panel, which is currently CE marked and not yet FDA cleared. A meta-analysis of 14 controlled studies was recently published in Expert Review of Medical Devices, a peer-reviewed medical journal comparing our sepsis products to the blood culture method. The use of T2's products showed significant clinical improvements and efficiencies, including accelerated time to species identification by 77 hours, accelerated time to administer targeted antimicrobial therapy by 42 hours, accelerated time to de-escalation of empiric therapy by 7 hours, and finally, decreased length of patient stay in the intensive care unit by 5 days and in the hospital by 4.8 days. I'd like to reiterate a few key takeaways. First, sepsis is a big problem. Second, rapid detection of sepsis-causing pathogens is required. And third, new technology must be embraced and adopted by hospitals. I want to thank Carl Flatley for founding Sepsis Alliance in 2007 after his daughter Erin died unnecessarily of sepsis when she was only 23 years old. And I'd also like to thank Tom Heyman and the Sepsis Alliance team for all you're doing to address the sepsis crisis. Thank you.